Hello. Wait for 2 minutes for people to join in. Hi, Sarang.
Hi, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, Isha.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. He's joining in. Okay. Let's wait for Rahul. Let's give it a minute. Or maybe we can start and Rahul can add in. Okay. Hi, Rohi. I hope you all can see my screen, right? So let's give it a start. I'm sure Rahul will join in soon. So yes, from yesterday, we have started looking into some basics of statistics. I'll just zoom my screen a little bit. Hope it is more visible right now. So these are the reference materials I had quickly discussed. Khan Academy, the primary one. This is right from the basics that it's going to cover. Then Business Statistics 7th edition. Rohi was already able to find the book from Amazon. I'll request Rohi if you can share that link or that screenshot with everyone on our group. That will be helpful. I'm sure Saransh already has this book, as I'm aware. Then this third book is Discovering Statistics with R. I'm sure this PDF is available online. Have a look. I'm sure you will be able to find this. But I would strongly recommend that you start with these two, because this one assumes that you do know some kind of mathematical, let's say, terminology. But I'm supremely confident anyone starting off should start from these two, especially this one, because Khan Academy teaches you very well. But the only problem that I told you about this Khan Academy, if you're looking at statistics and then later at probability playlist as well, go to YouTube, not to Khan Academy website. Okay. And then later on, maybe we will be looking into, or you may want to look into things like Coursera, where you have a specialization from Duke University. The course itself is free. Okay. How Coursera works is the courses are free. You want a certificate, you have to pay. That's all. You want to submit your assignments, you have to pay. That's it. You pay a minimal of money, which gives you a subscription for a month. As much as you are able to connect, you can. So and then you have sources like edX. There are playlists available in YouTube. Give me a moment. Okay. So there are other playlists as well. I'll try to find them. I've not found them. I'll be sharing those links with you. There is one which is Marine Stats. This name might be wrong. Spelling might be wrong. There is one more, Professor Leonard. That's what I remembered now. Leonard. This guy is really excellent. His lectures are really good. It is almost equivocal to Khan Academy, but Khan Academy has an advantage. It has bite-sized videos. Classes by Professor Leonard are like a little bit bigger in size, like so it's like half an hour to 1 hour. So to revise the concepts, you might want to go in there. Later on for the probability, there is a different list, so we will cover that at later stage. Then we started with the types of variables. So we started with the kind of data that we may have. We can have two kinds of data. Uh, one which is known as so one which is known as the quantitative data, which can be divided as discrete, or it can be divided as, let's say, continuous. We'll take more examples, so don't worry. And then there can be qualitative data, which can be divided as nominal. We are able to look at an example for the nominal, and then we can have qualitative data, which is other than nominal. It can be ordinal as well. Okay, so what is the kind of, let's say, the difference between, let's say, the qualitative and the quantitative thing. So qualitative usually means, I'm going to write it over here. So qualitative usually means these are your dimensions. Okay, these are like specifics. Okay, these are how you have already grouped a set of items which you already have, and that is quite clear over here, right? I mean, if I have Yeah. So if I have grades, then I've already divided my students or whomsoever appeared for that exam into the grades that they have got, which means I've grouped them. I have dimensionalized them, right? So if I have three grades, uh, excellent, good, and not good, then I've already grouped my students into three. So that's the essence of a qualitative variable. It's always part of dimensions or groups. But when it comes to quantitative variables, these variables are always, let's say, uh, measures. So you can say these are actually measures. Why they are actually measures is because you can actually measure them. You can have some kind of system which is going to measure your age or which is going to measure your salary, irrespective whether they are discrete, whether they are continuous. All right. So let's start with some more examples. I'll specifically start with qualitative today because this is a bit interesting and this is a debatable topic as well, because qualitative, being nominal and ordinal, can be represented both as numbers as well as non-numbers. So that's why there is a confusion. There will always be a confusion, but that confusion is good because we need to know all the cases where nominal can be used. Example given. I want to differentiate between two groups. Okay, I would like to know how many girls are there in our batch and how many boys are there in our batch. So if I look at the participant list right now, I can see there is only one girl. So I'll say F is equal to 1. So females is equal to 1. Male is equal to, exclusive of me, it will be 2. Or inclusive of me, it will be 3. Okay. So this is like I'm differentiating my class into two groups, male and female. Okay. Does that mean that I can order the class, that first of all there will be 3 male students and then there will be a female student? The answer is no. So in this set of data where I have 4 participants in this meeting, in this call, I have 4 people, 1 is female, 3 is male. I can't really put an order. I can't really serialize them. I can't put a serial number that this person X has a serial number 1 because that person is a female or a male. I can't do that. So there is no inherent order. Okay, in this data set, there can't be an order, right? You can think of other examples as well, where you can have categories of data where there is no order. Okay, there can be categories of data which are not nominal. Then they have the order, then they become ordinal. Okay, example given, we have already seen grades. Okay, or I can also say, let's say, I have 3 grades, A, B, and C. So this is a good example. A, B, and C are my grades that I have got into an exam. So this is an example of an ordinal variable. Why? Because I can order these. A means very good or excellent. B means okay, and C means not so good. Or maybe I can have 4 as well. So at the end of C, I can have another one which is F. So unfortunately, people who fail, I'm going to give them F. Right? If I'm going to conduct exams, I can give them grades like this. So in this case, I can clearly see there is an order here. A comes first, then comes B, then comes C, then comes F. If I'm going to do it in the decreasing order of the essence or the importance of that student, right? So in that case, I'm going to have an order. But when it comes to nominal, there is no order, right? Now, in case of ordinal, as well as in case of it's a nominal, you can have many levels of, let's say, categories, not limited that the categories are going to be only limited to 2, or in this case there are 4 grades, there are 2 genders, and so on and so forth. That's not going to be the case, and that is where, and related to that, there will be confusions. Example given, as you can see over here, both grades and the gender. So here I'm going to write, let's say, gender, so as to just simply specify. So both in case of gender as well as in case of grades, I'm also going to say, give me a minute, I'm also going to say that there is an inherent order, okay, in this case. Now, irrespective of how many values I have over here, in first case I have 2 values, second case I have 4 values, I can either represent them as strings or in words or in types of, let's say, letters, or I can also represent them as numbers. So that is where the confusion comes. So be very specific when you're looking at a data set. Try to understand the meaning, and then only you will be able to understand whether it is a quantitative data, whether it is a qualitative data. Okay, just because I'm going to represent, let's say, gender as the numbers, let's say I'm going to represent female as 0 and I'm going to represent m as 1. Okay, let's say this is a dictionary that I have. Okay, we have already seen how to create a dictionary in Python, right? So let's say I have a dictionary and I have two values. My first key, or the key of each and every row, is going to be the gender, and then the value is going to be the encoding that I have given that, right? So I have given an encoding or a representation of male as 1 and representation of female is equal to 0. So I can represent female and male in terms of 0 and 1. 0 and 1 is also numbers. So I can represent a nominal qualitative variable, which are dimensions, in form of numbers as well. So without understanding, these are going to be problems when you play around with the data, right? So irrespective of whether they're represented as text, whether they're represented as number, it doesn't matter. Look at the characteristic of the data, or the characteristic of that column, and then you'll come to know whether it is nominal or ordinal. Okay, so that's the first thing I wanted to mention. Second thing, almost always whenever you have nominal and ordinal data, they may or may not have any upfront relationships with the outcome which you're trying to solve, but they are the most lucrative cases. Okay, why I say this is because let's say you are in a situation where you are going to find out, if you have a company and there are 100 people in that company, you want to figure out if a certain employee XYZ, okay, and there are a lot of characteristics of that employee which you have already stored in your HR database. You want to predict whether that employee is going to churn or not. So that's a very important use case. In that kind of a use case, nominal and ordinal variables will be used a lot, because these are categories, these are the dimensions, and they will really be used a lot. So you need to understand what is nominal and what is ordinal. If you don't understand this, look into examples on the internet. There are many of them. If you don't hear back from these two books, because I'm sure you will get all the answers here. If you don't get the answers on the internet as well, please let me know if you have any doubts, because later on we are going to make a lot of use of these two kinds of variables. So I'm going to write these two are part of qualitative data set. Okay, you can simply represent them in form of Python programs as well. Okay, let's say you are writing an if-else statement kind of a Python program. In case a program is going to take an input which is going to be the percentage that you have got. Okay, and basis the percentage that you have got, you are going to print the output, or the grade that you have got, or the class that you have got. Either you have failed, either you are in second class, either you are in first class, or you have got a distinction or not. So this output variable, which you can call a grade or a position, is going to be ordinal. While if you are looking at, let's say, gender, or if you are looking at the states which are there in our country, okay, irrespective of how many states are there as of now, or how many are going to be found 5 years down the line, it doesn't matter. You can't order states. You can't say that Haryana, Maharashtra being a state is higher than, it's a Karnataka. Yeah, you can't say that. You cannot have an order in that. So in that case, that becomes a nominal variable. Okay. Now let's look into quantitative data. So quantitative data, as you have already seen, we have two types of data. One is a discrete data, one is a continuous data. Almost always quantitative data will always be number. Okay, there is hardly any situation where you would like to represent quantitative data in form of qualitative data or in form of ordinal data, but there may be cases. Okay, do remember, when you are playing around with data, when you are going to wrangle the data, you might at certain cases convert a quantitative variable into a qualitative variable, but that's entirely case to case basis. It's going to depend on what you're trying to do. We will be doing such kind of exercises as well, where we may want to convert the data. When I take examples, you will come to know. Okay, let's say one very easy example of, let's say, discrete. Okay, discrete variables. Okay, one very easy example of discrete variable is that how many children do I have in my family? Let's say children in family. Okay, so let's say I have only one children in family. Then in the next house I have one children. In the next house I have two children. In the next flat I have one children, and so on and so forth. So I get a list of data. Right. So this is a quantitative variable. Okay, I don't have any control on how many number of children will be there in each and every family, because unfortunately in our country we don't have any such law. Even if there is a country where there is a law, uh, if you are going to break the law, then you can have n number of child. But unless you have some kind of restrictions, let's say maybe in some country there is a restriction, you can't have more than 2 children, then in that case you have limited number of occurrences. But if I don't have such law in India, then I can have no restrictions in the range of data, even if they are discrete, right? Sometimes it is good to observe them in the ranges, and that is the reason why many of the real time or near to real time, or maybe the practical examples that we are going to see based on discrete cases will have some range. Okay, but it is not a mandate, don't be confused. A discrete variable only gives you a very specific and natural number, which is usually not represented in fractions. It is represented as whole numbers. Usually these are whole numbers, not fractions. Okay, not fractions I'm going to write. Okay, these are always whole numbers, not fractions. Okay, these are going to be whole numbers, not fractions, and they are going to represent something very, very specific. Okay, so that's what they are going to represent. Okay, almost always, almost always they will be within a range of values, right? So let's say if I have a law, as I said, in my country, in our country, if we have a law that we can not have more than 2 children, then the range is 0 to 2, right? Usually they will be in the range. Now, this is where a confusion is going to crop up in your mind when we do some kind of data analysis later on, where we might convert this discrete variable into ordinal variables as well. Example given: if I'm doing an analysis and I have a data set, how many children are there in the family? Okay, or maybe how many students are there in the class? Okay, I'll take one more example. How many students are there in one class? Okay, let's say there is one class where I have 10 students in class. Okay, so let's say I have 12 classes, 1 to 12. Okay, and in class 1, let's say in class 1 I have I don't know, 30 students. In 2 I have 32 students, and so on and so forth. Okay, so there can be cases where I would like to group this data into two groups. Okay, maybe there are classes in my school, in my college, or in my institution where I have much lesser student, or I have the number of students which is almost equal to the number which I guaranteed to have. Example, when you go to school for admission, right? Usually your parents are going to remember, or if you have kids, you are going to face this. When you go to school, the authority in that school is going to say, sir, in our school, in every class, we don't accept more than 20 students. Okay, so in each and every class you are going to have only 20 students or 30 students. So that's kind of the normal, but then there are exceptions as well. Maybe in the lower classes you have lesser students because you need to manage them quite well. So that's why in class 1 you have only 22 students, in class 2 you have only 23 students. But when as you go along, let's say in class 8, so class 8 the students are at least to some extent quite matured. I don't need hand holding for each and every student, right? So that's why I can extend myself and go up to 35 students in class 8, maybe even 40, and I can break them into 4 sections as well. I can break them into 2 sections. Okay, in class 1 and class 2 it's not really mandate for me to have sections and so on. I can have that, but that might only increase the complexity, right? In this case, why I'm taking this example so seriously is because I can convert this set of discrete data into categories, okay, into ordinal data. I can order the classes, or I can group the classes into two different types. One where I have the number of students which is equal to what I promised or what I should have had, let's say 20, and I have another group of classes where I have more than 20. Or I can group it into 3 classes: small, medium, and large. I have set of classes where I have small number of students, so they fall into small. I have medium where there are, let's say, 30, 35 students. I have large where there are even more than 40 students. So these are kind of things that we may want to do when we are doing the data analysis or data preparation, when we are going to do any prediction or any statistical inference. There is nothing wrong in this. This technique is a statistical technique. It is known as data engineering, or it is otherwise known as feature engineering. You are creating new columns or new features from existing columns or existing features. Okay, columns and features will be used interchangeably, as we have already seen, right? Please keep this in mind. uh, even if it was a discrete variable, we may want to change it into an ordinal variable basis our use case. The second is the continuous variable. Okay, continuous variable is very simple. There is nothing wrong in this. Simple amount of something which is really hurting me these days, amount of income tax paid. Okay, so this number can be represented into fractions. So I'm going to write can be represented as whole number or decimal numbers. Okay, if I'm going to represent this number as a decimal number, you have no control on how much will be the precision. So after that dot, I can have 2 places of decimal, I can have 10 places of decimal. So I can go up to infinitesimal extents of defining the number, right? So that's why this is known as continuous. You can't bound it. It starts from 0, or it starts from a negative value, negative infinity to positive infinity. You can have that range. So that's what is known as continuous variable, right? So this is where you have this kind of. So let's say we can take some more examples. Okay, example given. Let's say uh, in case of, let's say, discrete data, let's say I have a set of data where I am saying the number of products which is sold by the large telecom handset companies. Example given, Samsung has 200 different types of products, while Apple has only 30, Nokia has only 10, LG has over, let's say, 400. These are just dummy numbers. Okay, I'm only taking example, but in this case, I have 2 columns in my data set. Imagine one is organization, one is number of products. In the organization column, I have names of these phone and tabs and electronics companies. And in the second column, which is number of products, I'm going to have the number of distinct items that they have. Usually, the discrete variables are always distinct counts. Okay, I don't take non-distinct counts over there. People who have worked with the databases will understand the difference between distinct and non-distinct. They are always distinct in the representation or the valuation, right? So this is one example of the discrete data. But then when you look at continuous data, you can look at age as well as a continuous data. Okay, why is this so? Now I'm going to introduce some kind of a confusion. We have already said that age can usually be limited between 0 to 10, right? But then we also said that I can represent age by means of years. I can represent age by means of years, days, or years, months, days, hours, and minutes and seconds. In which case, my age variable no longer becomes discrete, it becomes a continuous variable. So interchangeably, I may have features or columns which can either be categorized as a discrete variable or a continuous variable. Okay, then a very common example of a continuous data is if I'm going to measure all of our weight. Okay, I don't want to measure my own weight because of obvious reasons, but if I'm going to measure the weights of everybody, then I'm going to consider that variable as a continuous variable, because that weight may well be represented in form of a decimal number, and after the decimal point I can have any number of precision. I can have any length of that variable, right? Weight has no limitation, right? So until this point, we are already almost half time. So if you have any queries, please let me know. Please unmute and you can ask me the questions. I think somebody has dropped off. Okay, Isha has dropped off. Okay, go ahead. If you have any questions there, Rohit, Saransh. I'll have some.
No, Bhaumik, it's clear for me.
Any questions from you, Rohit?
No.
Okay, good. Let's move ahead and let's look into something else. So these are types of data that we have already seen. Let me just put this like this. Okay, now we are going to look at some other things, which is known as variables. Okay, this word variable will be used interchangeably with other synonyms. Okay, I'm going to tell you the synonyms. Columns, features are most commonly used replacement of variables. When I say variables, they can be columns, they can be called features, or they can be called variables. Okay, usually and upfront, there are almost always 5 kinds of variables which we can have statistically. Okay, statistically there can be 5 kind of variables. I have already divided the number or type of variables into 5 types. Okay, so the first type is going to be categorical variable. Okay, This is just another way of representing the data. Don't get confused. This is nothing really very kind of, it's a NASA level science. It's a very, very simple thing. So categorical variable is where I can actually distribute my data into categories, right? Male and female is an example. It's a very, very easy example. Male and female can be an example. Okay. Then the second type of variable is going to be control variable, or yeah. Okay. What is a control variable? This will be more clear when we look at the concept of an experiment. But let's say I would like to do an experiment of 50 people. Okay, 50 people who are residing in my society. Total in my society, hold on, there's 49, 98, 192 flats in my society. So I'll assume everybody stays over here. So 192 people are staying over here. Let's say 190 people are staying over here. I want to take a sample of 50 people out of these, and I would like to do an experiment. Okay, the experiment is going to be a blood test. I would like to do a blood test. Randomly, I'm going to select these people and I'm going to do an experiment, and I'm going to figure out if they have any signs of influenza or any signs of COVID-19, irrespective of what kind of specific blood test the person who is going to enter or exactly perform the blood test will know the technicality. I'm not really a doctor, but I would like to conduct this experiment. I am the initiator of this experiment. People will be called upon. We will go to their flats. We will take the samples of their blood. We'll do a small prick in their hand. We'll take the samples and we are going to do a test. Okay. In this case, what I would like to maintain, okay, what I would like to maintain as an assumption, as a control, is that I will request everyone that I will come between the time 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Okay, to collect their blood samples, I'm going to come between 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. At that point in time, please don't eat anything. You should be empty stomach. I don't want you to eat anything. Don't even drink a glass of water if that helps. Okay, you may want to have some water. I don't mind, but please don't eat your breakfast by that time. Please wait until 8 a.m. If I'm not there, go ahead. Okay, but if you have already eaten your breakfast for that day, I'm sorry, I'm not going to consider you as part of my sample. I'll take someone else. Okay, that this thing that I tried to control or I tried to make a constant is known as a control variable. Okay, so this is a factor or a variable which I would like to make a constant during an experiment. Okay, this is known as a control variable. We will come to know about control variable more when we look into statistical experiments. But a control variable is important. Why is it important? You must know what is a control variable in each and every experiment. I can't simply go to 90 people and take their blood samples because I want to know whether they have any blood sugar or not. Usually, if you are already aware, blood sugar tests are of two types. One is on empty stomach, one is after you have eaten something. If I'm doing an empty stomach test, I need to take the blood sample when people have not eaten anything, when their stomach is empty, especially during the early morning hours, right? Especially with a 12-hour fast or a 10-hour fast, right? That is the control variable here. The assumption or the constant over here is that you must not have had anything to eat. Okay, my experiment is to take your blood. I would like to see if you are infected with COVID-19, unfortunately, or you have any blood sugar problems. I would not want you to eat anything. That's the control variable. My experiment is me taking your blood to do a blood test. Right. Third, confounding variable. Very, very strange names, but if you understand the meaning of the variables or the names of the variables, if you understand the word itself, you will come to know what is the meaning of the variable. Okay, confounding variable are otherwise known as thieves. I will call them thieves, or they are hidden variables. Thieves are people who are always skeptical about getting caught and they are always hidden. Okay, people who are always hidden are like, let's say, the criminals. Okay, they'll always stay in a hidden place so that police does not catch them. The same thing occurs with confounding variable. Okay, let's take an example and we'll come to it. We looked into one example with a small graph. If you remember, we draw a graph of x and y axis where we saw there is an increase in the ice cream sales and at the same time, equivocally, there is an increase in the number of shark attacks. Okay, these are the number of people who died, unfortunately, and this is the time of year. Okay, in the summer months, I see both of these are increasing. So the sale of ice cream is increasing, as well as the shark attacks are increasing. So both of them has increased. Is there anything really common between sales of ice cream and the shark attacks? Are sharks going to attack you because you have had the ice cream? No. They don't want to taste you with the ice cream, right? They don't want to eat you or digest you with the ice cream. They have no idea what is an ice cream. But there is a variable in these two situations, which is the temperature or the heat. During the month of, let's say, April until June, we are going to have very high temperature. And that is the reason why people will buy more ice creams at that point in time, obviously, and people will go to beaches more likely. If they're going to go to such beaches where you have more sharks, then the probability of shark attacks are going to increase. In this case, temperature in this example is a confounding variable. It is a hidden variable which is there in the scenario but may not be there in the data. Remember this, it is there in the scenario, but it is not there in the data. Somebody shows you that kind of a data, they may not tell you what is the confounding variable. It is there, it is hidden in the background, but you may not come to know unless you really analyze the situation. Okay, there's a very important fact I'm going to tell you. Don't blindly believe the numbers. You can lie in 1001 different ways using statistics. Never ever believe the numbers. Explore them equivocally. If you are getting a WhatsApp message, example given with some numbers of COVID-19 patients being infected in your area, please don't believe that. You must go with your analysis, and then you should believe the information that you are getting. Let alone that information is coming from a very reliable source or one of the most used social media platforms of today. Okay, because there will always be confounding variables, hidden variables which are affecting the outcome. Okay, we have only 8 minutes left, so we'll try to complete variables part at least, and we'll see how much more we can complete. Okay, so three kinds of variables we have already seen: categorical, control variable, confounding variable. We have understood the meaning. Now the fourth one, dependent variable. Okay, these are variables which are often usually the outcome of some exercise that I'm doing. Example given, I have a die. I have a fair dice and I'm throwing that dice. You know, a fair dice is going to have 6 sides. In each side, there will be a number printed. So 1 to 6 is the possible outcomes. I'm going to get some outcome when I'm going to throw the dice. Let's say I throw the dice, I get 3. Right? Rohit throws the dice, he gets 4. So let me write this. Okay, I throw the dice. SB throws the dice, I get 3. Rohi throws the dice, he gets 6. Saransh throws the dice, he gets 2. The throwing of the dice is an experiment. The outcome that I have got is 3, 6, or 2. The outcome that I have got, in this case 3, 6, or 2, is actually dependent on something. First of all, I need to have that dice. Right? I need to have that dice. What else am I going to throw? I need to have the dice at the first place. I need to have some place to throw the dice. I need to have good visibility in that place. If I'm going to throw the dice at the night time, unless the dice is a fluorescent dice, you won't be able to see it. You won't be able to see what is the number, right? And then we are going to quarrel who has got 6 and who has got 2. So then these are factors which are affecting the outcome, but the outcome is always affected by some factor. So that is why the outcome is known as a dependent variable. Any variable, any column, any feature in your data set is dependent variable when happening of that outcome or the value is dependent on something else. Here it is dependent on a lot of things, as we said. And there are other things as well, right? What will be the control variable in this case, by the way? In this case, the control variable is going to be, the constant is going to be, my dice has to be a proper dice. It would not be a morphed one. It should have 6 sides. Okay, it should be a fair dice. So that fair dice concept is a control variable, right? Fair dice concept is a control variable. I am deliberately trying to throw the dice on the maze in a certain way that I get a 6. Okay, or Rohi is trying to do that. That is a confounding variable. There's some kind of cheating happening. That is a confounding variable. Something is happening in that room, in that exercise, which is making the die to land on a certain number. Okay, that is the confounding variable. And it can also be treated as a categorical variable as well. Why? Because a die has only 6 sides: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. These are the only distinct outcomes I can get while throwing a die. I hope I have not really confused you, but as you can see, these variable types can be intermingled with each other in scenarios. One variable can mean multiple things, right? So don't try to get confused. Analyze the situation first, then come to conclusion. Then the last type, independent variables. Something which is independent, a variable that is not affected by anything at all. Okay. Is there any independent variable which I have? It is going to depend on the scenario. Independent variable does not exist without a dependent variable. Okay, it's a combination of independent and dependent variable which helps you understand, okay, this is an independent variable and this is a dependent variable. Example given, the presence of that dice, right? The presence of that dice. So I'm going to call this other than outcome. Other than outcome, if there is anything in my data, that's my independent variable. Almost usually, not always, almost usually, that is the independent variable. Let's say I'm throwing the dice. So that's an independent variable. I have the dice at the first place. So having a die is an independent variable. Okay, then only I can throw the die. Then only I will be getting one out of those 6 numbers, right? So independent variable is something which is affecting the dependent variable or causing the dependent variable. That's why usually, almost always, they exist together. If there is, however, a problem in the way you have conducted an experiment, which we are going to look now, or you have done something wrong while collecting the data, then there can be a possibility that your data set does not capture the dependent variable properly. It only has the independent variables. Example given, I forgot to write down what came out as an outcome of that die throw. Okay, so we all three threw the dice. I forgot to write down what is the outcome. Then in that case, in my data, I'm not going to have the dependent variable. I have recorded all the independencies, but I have not recorded the dependent outcome. Okay, this can be a data collection error, or it is also going to depend on how effectively or ineffectively I have actually performed the experiment. Right now, experiment we have already touched base quickly. Let me go ahead with that a little bit too quickly because we don't have much time, but we are going to look into experiments. And experiment is basically, I can say it is an exercise, work, task, activity. These are the synonyms. Okay, I can use these kind of synonyms when I'm trying to understand experiment. When you're talking to a statistician, don't use these words. For a statistician, experiment is always an experiment. For a data scientist also, in many cases, an experiment is simply referred to an experiment. It is an exercise which you are doing to do something. Now my question is, what are you trying to do? You're trying to do a research, let's say. I would like to know, if I have a fair dice, is it always the case that I throw the dice for, I don't know, 1000 times, and I am supremely confident at least 200 times I am going to get the number 3? Is that really the case or no? So I am doing some kind of research. I'm doing a research here to find out the probability of one number or one possible outcome of that die to come out if I do that experiment 1000 times. Or maybe I have 1000 participants. Everybody is going to roll the die once. So I have 1000 outcomes. I would like to know if the outcome is going to be 5 or not. And if the outcome is 5, out of total 1000 experiments, if that outcome exceeds or equals the number 200 or not, right? This concept is known as experimental research. Okay, what we are trying to do over here is the aim of an experimental research, okay, research related to experimental research, Okay, we have less than 1 minute left, so I will have to stop after some time, but I'll quickly explain what is experimental research. Experimental research is the aim to manipulate an independent variable. Okay, it is the aim to manipulate an independent variable to examine its effect on dependent variable. Okay, I'm doing some experiment, some exercise, something, some activity where I'm playing around with independent variables, and I would like to see what is the outcome or effect on the dependent variable. I think we have less time now, so maybe we are going to stop. I would suggest if you have any questions, please let me know. Okay, let's meet at the same time tomorrow. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you.